Hello and welcome back to Popcorn Chat. I hope you guys are doing well. This week's video I am getting involved within the top 10 tag. So I'd like to thank Carl who tagged me within this challenge, and I'm going to talk through some of my top 10 genres and my favourite films within those genres. So let's start with comedy. So for me, these are any sort of films that I sort of grew up watching and really sort of enjoyed. And the one that always comes back for me is The School of Rock. Now this is a film that I quote very regularly. I just think it's spectacular. I think Jack Black is amazing. I think all the sort of the kids that are involved are amazing. They could all play sort of musical instruments, and then the acting was, you know, another bonus on top of that. And I just think it's brilliant. I quite like Richard Linklater's work. I've seen quite a few of his films, and I think this is a standout one for me, and I can come back to it again and again. So let's move on to animation. Of course, this can be quite a broad subject. This could be, you know, your Disneys, your Pixars, you could be even stop motion, even any sort of animes, things like that. But for me, I was sort of looking more at the Disney sort of aspect of this genre, and a film for me that just is always reliable. I love the soundtrack, and I just think it's a great film, and that is Hercules. Hercules is probably my favourite Disney film, and it's probably is my favourite animation film. I think the soundtrack is one of the best things that Disney's ever done. I think the characters, like the villain, I just love all of it, and you can appreciate, you know, some more of the more mature jokes, you know, for any sort of adults watching this film as you get older. And I just think it's brilliant. It's so colourful. It's that sort of 90s Disney era, but for me this will always hold up. So Hercules is my favourite animation film. So one of the other genres that we have to talk about within this tag is westerns, and for me personally, I'm not really a big fan of the western sort of genre. I've only seen a handful of western films. Maybe that's why I don't like them, but they've never really appealed to me. If I had to choose a film that I liked within that genre, it would have to be Django Unchained. I saw this in the cinema and I thought it was a pretty solid film. I think the performances are brilliant. It's probably one of my more favourite Tarantino films that I've seen. So yeah, I would have to say this. I know everyone's probably saying something, you know, a lot more sort of spaghetti western, sort of more traditional westerns, but for me, the ones that I've seen, Django is probably one of the best. So for the romantic genre, I was very much torn between two films. Again, these sort of genres could sort of blur, you know, you could have, you know, a bit of romance, drama, action, all within the same film. But for me, I was torn between two films within this genre, and that was either Love, Rosie, or the one which I've gone with, which was About Time. I only saw this film after it came out, and I had no idea about it, but I was really pleasantly surprised with this film. It stars Donald Gleeson and Rachel McAdams, and Rachel McAdams, as I'm sure you know, is very much involved within the sort of the romantic genre of cinema, and she like kills it in every film that she's in. And I just think it's brilliant. It's very British. It has that time travel element, and I think it just adds to it. And it's just those snippets in time and in, you know, relationships and life that you sort of go back to. And I just think it's really wholesome. I think it's a brilliant sort of modern romantic film. So for me, it would be About Time. So I found the drama genre really hard to sort of choose my favourite film within, because there's so many sort of dramas out there, and like I said, there's that sort of line it blurs across, like it's a drama action, it's a drama thriller, you know, there's so many different dramas, such like a sort of core for a lot of films, and it sort of stems out. So I found this one probably the hardest to find a favourite in, but I have gone for David Fincher's Fight Club. I've gone for Fight Club mainly because it's a film that I saw when I was 17, sort of in my adolescence, and it sort of really got me into cinema and the whole sort of analysis of it all, and sort of really picking apart a film. I think the performances are brilliant, from the core cast especially. I think it's one of David Fincher's best directed films. I know it's very much, it's the go-to answer for a lot of people who are interested in cinema or just getting into cinema, like, you know, it's that sort of handful of films that people say, oh, I love Fight Club. But I genuinely do love Fight Club, and I wrote about it at university and the sort of the masculinity of it all. And I just think it's a film that always holds up for me. You can read it on so many different levels and different eyes and different perspectives. But yeah, so I went with Fight Club for my favourite drama. So next up we have the comic book genre, and I'm sure many people are just jumping to MCU or DCEU films, or you can go for those other films that play on the sort of the superhero trope, I guess. But for me, for this one, it was torn between two films. It was either going to be The Dark Knight, or it's going to be the one that I chose, and that was The Winter Soldier. For me, as a Marvel fan, this sort of changed the way in which Marvel films were sort of produced and the sort of the themes they sort of delve into, and I just liked the message that this film had. It was really interesting, and it spoke very much about, you know, the corruption from within, you know, organisations and such, and so it's readable on so many levels. For something that's a family kids film, in some ways is very much a darker, more political kind of film, and I think this sort of changed the way in which Marvel approached, you know, the next sort of phases. But then you can have those more light-hearted films, which I do enjoy, you know, Batman Forever and like those early Spider-Man, Sam Raimi films. But for me, I prefer the more sort of based in reality, sort of grounded films, and The Winter Soldier, Captain America the Winter Soldier, sort of stepped up a level for me, so that's why it's my favourite in the comic book genre. So moving on to the horror genre now, and again I found this one quite tricky, but for me it's something that it's more of a franchise, and I watched it only last year. I watched it around sort of Halloween last year, and it would have to be Scream. Well, the first Scream specifically, but generally I just sort of fell in love with the Scream franchise. It was the first time that I witnessed it last year, and I think it's brilliant. Like, it just plays on the sort of the slasher tropes, and it's very self-aware, it breaks the fourth wall, but at the same time they're good films, and you have these sort of character arcs. Number 3 is probably not the best, but I think number 1 is definitely one of my favourite horror films. So now we're on to the adventure genre of films, and this is what I really sort of grew up on. I was very much, you know, obviously a 90s, noughties kids, and there was so much adventure, escapism kind of films. But for me, in terms of adventure, I'm going to have to go with Jumanji, the original Jumanji, not the sort of the new editions, but the original one with Robin Williams. I found it scary, I found it exciting, funny, exhilarating. There's so many different characters and storylines. Like, there's a bigger plot there, you know, with these sort of orphan children, and how Robin Williams' character's relationship with his father. There's so much, like, you can read into this film, but at the end of it, like, it is like just these people playing a board game, and how the world sort of, the two worlds of the board game and reality collide. So if it's on the TV, I'm going to sit down and watch it. It's that sort of film. So that's why I've chosen Jumanji as my favourite adventure film. So for the sci-fi genre, I have gone for The Matrix, the first film. Again, I think the first film seemed to sort of be the best, always seemed to be the best, but the whole sort of establishment of the world and the influence that this film had from the Wachowski sisters, you know, within different sort of choreography and the sort of this sort of dystopian sci-fi world they were able to create, and the sort of the black leather, the sunglasses, just trying to look cool. Like, there's so many things about this film which I think is a shame. Like, if you're only coming to it maybe now, you're sort of watching it, you know, 20 years later as such, you're going to just be influenced by other things that you've seen. But I really wish I could have seen this when it originally came out, and to see the sort of the reception this film got. So I'm going with the first Matrix as my favourite sci-fi film. So we're on to the final genre now, which is action. Action is very similar to westerns. It's not probably my favourite genre, but I've seen a fair few amount of them. So for this one, I'm going to go with Speed. Again, this is a sort of a fairly recent watch. However, on viewing, I sort of really enjoyed it. It's probably the most exhilarating film I've watched in a long time. You know, the first opening scene I thought could have been like a final section within another film. It was just like, whoa, okay, this is what we're going in for. So in terms of sort of like recent impacts and ones, films that sort of stuck with me and I want to watch like again, it's gonna have to be Speed as my favourite action genre film. So I'm going to tag a few people now just to sort of carry on this, and I'll be really intrigued to see what you guys sort of say for your favourite films within these genres. But don't feel obliged that you have to do it, or if you've been tagged previously, then don't worry about that too much. But it'd be just really interesting to see what other people's opinions are. So I'm going to tag Styled Cinema, The Girl and a Movie, Samuel James Media and Tay Reviews. So thanks Carl again for tagging me within this challenge. I really enjoyed doing it, even though it's quite hard to sort of finalise it down to one film within those genres. I've really had a blast sort of planning and shooting this video. Hope you guys enjoyed this week's video. Don't forget next week we've got our monthly live stream, which will be on Sunday, and then also you'll get another new video next week. So I'll see you next time for another popcorn chat.